What is going on, guys? Ultimate Deadpool here, back with another video. Today's going to be a little bit different. Today we got some actual Lego stuff as well as some not Lego stuff. And obviously we still have Marvel Legends off to the side as well. So, it's going to be a very, very busy video. We're going to try to get through this stuff as fast as we possibly can today, because I know I don't want to be here all day, and I'm likely you guys don't want to be either. If there's a specific section of this video that you want to take a look at, I will try to put timestamps in the description so that way you guys can skip around to a segment or whatever that you want to see. So today we're going to be looking at the new edition of Spider-Man vs. Ghost Rider. For Ghost Rider's motorcycle, obviously still in Lego. We've got the Spider-Man 3, Spider-Man vs. Sandman and Venom diorama style set, if you want to call it that. And then, whoop, we're already off to a bad start there. We'll set that off to the side. And then we have 3 Brickhead Ghostbusters, at least I think that's what these things are called. And then 3 Brickhead horror movie characters off to the side as well. And then off to the side we've got a different version of the Iron Man Mark III that Marvel Legends has made, along with a Spider-Man Andrew Garfield Spider-Man variant. This is the cheaper version of it. I know there's another one out there that has a secondary head and other hands. We'll get into all that later. But for now, let's go ahead and get started with today's video. Starting off with these Brickheads Ghostbusters. So, sorry about that. I forgot my light was turned on for a second. It just wasn't aimed quite right. So, my parents got me these things off of the internet. I don't know exactly what website they used. I don't know exactly where they found them from. Probably, I think they said something off of Facebook or something. They saw these and just knew, because of my truck being Ghostbuster themed and me, still liking Lego, just wasn't really doing anything with Lego. Thought that I would really like these, and I do. My only complaint with them was their instructions, because they're not official Lego, were a pain in the ass to follow, because they would have one section highlighted as your base layer, but then every step that you move on from, the parts turn gray, and it was super jarring and whatnot. But I eventually figured it out, and we have these 3 plus the other 3 that we'll get to in a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to take each one of these one by one. We're going to run through them as fast as we possibly can and explain, obviously, who they are, what they are, and how difficult on a scale of 1 to 10 to do. They were easy or hard to do. And these things are actually a little bit morbid. We'll get into that in a little bit. But let's go ahead and move on. Starting off with Slimer. Now, Slimer is arguably one of the best characters in all of Ghostbusters. A really big main popular character throughout the movies, as well as the animated cartoon show, The Real Ghostbusters, later rebranded Slimer in The Real Ghostbusters. This guy is fun. He was not fun to put together, but otherwise, he's fun. Obviously, you can tell exactly who this is just by looking at it. He is also a little bit anatomically correct. If you look back here, he does actually have 2 of these little, rounded pieces or whatever that simulate his butt cheeks. So, the actual Slimer in the movie did have a butt as well. So does this guy. This guy also has a butt. And a tail. That's what the little circle disc on, right here is. But inside, if you look inside there are 2 pieces that kind of look like this on the inside that are supposed to simulate his booty cheeks. So yes, technically Slimer does have a butt. In terms of putting this guy together, it wasn't fun. Like I said, the instructions were slightly off-putting. They were straightforward, and they told you exactly what to do. But it's like every single step had the specific pieces highlighted that you were working on, but then everything else was shaded gray, and then I thought I missed a step, and I had to like, okay, crap, I need to go back and backtrack this, but I couldn't tell what I had missed because all the parts on the instructions were gray, not the color of the actual bricks that you were using, except for that initial step that you were on. It was confusing. I eventually figured it out and was able to move on from there. This is actually really cool. All of these little things are. I was never big on BrickHeadz when Lego first started doing them, but then I saw more and more versions of them. I saw people, start doing custom versions and stuff, and then I saw, third-party companies like this and stuff do them, they were cool. They were fun. It's just that to me, I didn't see the appeal, and then somebody pointed it out that they kind of look like Lego Funko Pops. And I don't mind Funko Pops, so I'm like, you know what? Okay, I can see that. And I ended up, like I said, getting these for Christmas as well, which was cool. So, but yeah, you can obviously tell who this is supposed to be. He stands up. All the bricks are nice and secure, so this isn't like a cheap third-party style plastic or off-brand knockoff stuff where they use crappy plastic that just falls apart if you just so much as touch it. This one of these things actually took a shelf dive earlier, and broke hardly at all, so that was good. But yeah, no, this is these are legitimately good things. If I can find them, I'll put them in the link of the description. Otherwise, it's just, if you look up BrickHeadz Ghostbusters or Lego Ghostbusters or something on the internet, maybe these will come up. I don't know. Like I said, I didn't get them. My parents did. Moving now on to Stay Puft, arguably one of the most iconic versions of anything Ghostbuster related is the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. This was the one that took a shelf dive. And really the only thing that happened was his arm broke off, his hat fell off, and one of his legs fell off. But otherwise everything else was intact, and it was a pretty high and hard fall onto hardwood floor. And this plastic didn't really do much of anything, except maybe one or two pieces went flying, but that was about it. Otherwise everything else stayed intact. You can't say that about all knockoff Lego pieces, because sometimes they'll use like really cheap flimsy plastic, or they'll have a bunch of mold degradation to where the pieces, they click together but they don't stick together, if that makes sense, and they're all loose and floppy, and it's just a disaster waiting to happen with some of that stuff. But these, however, these are really well put together. These are actually really high quality. I'd say are arguably better quality than some of the Lego stuff that I have seen over the years. Granted, I haven't messed with, like I said earlier, I have not really messed with Lego a whole lot. I actually recently just did it for the first time in 2 years. For those of you who know the reasons, you know the reasons. But today was like the first official real building anything with Lego that I have done in a very long time. So, from my experiences that I had, this is a lot sturdier than most other knockoff companies that do this type of stuff. Because otherwise, sometimes they would use pieces and you could, go like this with your finger and the arms would jiggle up and down because it's, there's nothing really holding those clips in. But no, that's nice and sturdy. You can obviously move the arm, and they're nice and stiff too. So it's like you can move, his arms and whatever can move relatively simply and not risk it falling apart. So, I mean, again, this looks like Stay Puft. You can tell who it's supposed to be, and yeah, it's it's pretty straightforward. You can look at this thing, you know exactly who it is. Obviously, you could mistake him for the Michelin Man or whatnot, but you can obviously tell with the hat and the bow tie and the sailor suit. You can tell it's Stay Puft. Dr. Peter Venkman, expertly played by Bill Murray. Here's where the stuff starts to get a little morbid. I don't know if all BrickHeadz are like this, but since these are my first real BrickHeadz, they have brains and spinal columns. What do I mean by that? If I were to take apart his head right now, and you would look inside here, there is a pink brick that serves no other purpose other than just look like he's got an actual brain in his head. And then below that is a white cylinder piece, similar to what's on Stay Puft legs, to, I'm assuming, mimic spinal column. So these things, at least in this case scenario, and we'll get to the horror characters later as well, because they have that as well, these mimic anatomy, or at least inner anatomy, because these have brains and spines. Why? I don't know. But for some reason, they do. So I am not joking. If you were to pick up one of these things right now, and you start putting it together, and you get to the point where you see the pink brick goes right in the center of the head, where your brain would logically be, these things technically have brains. What's funny, though, is Slimer also has a brain, but his is a sad little tiny gray stud. And no joke, that's what his brain is, if you want to use my own logic against me. If I were to take this stuff apart right now, which I'm not going to because this stuff is a bitch to come apart, you can see a tiny little green stud in the center of his head that, if I had to guess, is supposed to mimic a brain, which is kind of sad but funny at the same time. Stay Puft has none of that because he's a giant marshmallow, but Peter's got it, Jason's got it, Chucky's got it, and I think Ghostface had it as well. And then Slimer also had it. But Slimer's was just a tiny little stud piece. So, slightly morbid, slightly kind of cool, slightly interesting. All of which, really cool. I love his little proton pack, how it's just stretched out just enough to where it fits suitably on his back. These things were fun to put together, I'm not going to lie. The instructions yes, were a pain in the ass, but once I got past that, they were actually pretty fun to put together. So, and like I said, it's been a long time since I put together really anything with Lego. So, but obviously, again, just by looking at this guy, you can tell who he is. Because Bill Murray, when he did play Peter Venkman, and even when he still plays Peter Venkman, his hairline is receding relatively far back because he was balding at the time of filming Ghostbusters, and he's still at that point today. No disrespect to you, Bill Murray, but you know, your hairline is receding, man. So, but again, just by looking at this guy, you can tell exactly who this is supposed to be. Even though it's all geometric and whatnot. That's the thing, though. Even though these things are geometric, you can still tell exactly who they are supposed to be. Especially the horror movie characters, but that's also kind of easy because if you look at Chucky, he looks like Chucky. If you look at Ghostface, he looks like Ghostface. And if you look at Jason, he looks like Jason. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So anyway, all of the Ghostbuster guys look really cool. These are actually going to go in my Funko Pop collection stuff in my display case, because to me they're just Lego versions of Funko Pops. You know, big heads, smallish bodies, and black eyes. That's exactly what these look like. So, for some reason though, Stay Puft doesn't come with a base, or doesn't have a buildable base. Slimer technically doesn't either, but he at least has a little flight stand, so that way it simulates him flying. Peter is the only one that has a base, and then Ghostface, Chucky, and Jason all have bases that match. I don't know why they did that. I'm not complaining. It's a very easy fix if I so choose, but it's just kind of funny to think about. So let's move on. Alright, now we're moving on to horror figures. So to this time, or right now, we've got Ghostface, Jason Voorhees, and Chucky, like I kind of already said earlier. And if you couldn't tell at the beginning of the video who these guys were, then you don't know horror movies, which is fine. No, not everybody watches horror movies. So what we're going to do is, just like the other guys, we're going to go through these guys one by one, and we're going to get through them as fast as we possibly can. So let's go ahead and start off with Chucky. Alright, kicking things off with Chucky. Now, for starters, he is not the shortest person in the world. He's about the same height as everybody else, maybe just a smidge shorter, but you know that's to be expected when you're building stuff like this out of bricks. He looks really fun, and he, again, just like everybody else, he was actually really fun to put together. As much as I complained about the instructions, it was the instructions were frustrating. The constructions of these things were actually kind of fun. But just like I said earlier with Peter Venkman, if I were to take certain parts of this guy apart, not only does he have a brain and a spinal column, which is accurate to the official Child's Play movies and stuff, he has a gray skull underneath here. What do I mean by that? The way that this stuff fits off to the sides, just like it is now, to where you can attach the pieces onto the sides of the head like that, are these gray plates that fit forward. So it's like you have the bricks, and then you have the studs forward, and then you can attach stuff to the side. Those are gray. Chucky's head in Child's Play 2 is depicted as being made of metal, because he's a doll. So technically, this is extremely accurate to at least Child's Play 2 and forward, because in that movie, Chucky was depicted as having a metal head. Or at least his head was metal, and then it had the latex and stuff over it to make everything all nice and seamless. But his inner skeleton and whatever, made his eyes and whatever move for the actual toy part of Chucky was metal. So it's kind of fun that they have that. Plus, on the inside of all that stuff, in Bride of Chucky or Seed of Chucky, one of the two, somebody opens up Chucky or somebody's battery compartment and they see organs. So technically, it's not that far off if you want to go ahead and go with my brain theory and stuff that I said earlier. But this guy has it too, and then Jason has it as well. I'm pretty sure Ghostface had it too, but Ghostface actually had something else that we'll talk about later. And with him, I might actually be able to show part of that. But like I said, I'm not trying to take this stuff apart right now because they were not fun to put together, and I do not want them breaking, because then I don't want to mess with the instructions again. So again, just like the Ghostbuster guys, you look at this guy, you know exactly what you're looking at, you know roughly what to expect. So, and he also has a little dagger and whatnot. He even got a pocket for his overalls and buttons for his overalls as well as his traditional Chucky freckles printed on his cheeks. So, and they actually managed to make him look very colorful because his shirt is multiple colors, and they even gave him his shoes as red, white, and blue. Or technically red and white, but the blue is part of his coveralls. So, again, just by looking at this guy, you know exactly who he is. So, let's move on. Moving on now to Mr. Voorhees. Jason Voorhees himself, Mama's boy himself. Arguably one of the most iconic horror movie characters of all time. This guy was also pretty fun to do. I wasn't so sure how his hockey mask and stuff was going to work just looking at the box. Follow the instructions if you get this guy. They do a relatively good job at showing you how this stuff does go together. But if you are familiar with anything Lego instruction-wise... Oops, he's falling off his base because I'm trying to put plates and stuff down. If you are familiar with anything Lego related, you need to read the instructions carefully. Because if you're used to that form of instructions and then you go in blind not knowing that, hey, it only highlights a certain section that you're working on, everything else is tinted gray so that way it doesn't confuse you, trust me, it will make it a lot more confusing if you're looking at it that way. And it's also kind of messed up that they use these 1x2 flat plates with the studs in the center to mimic Jason's deformed head. Kind of funny, kind of messed up at the same time. And then he also has blood on his shirt and pants. You can see the red plates on his shirt as well as the red plate on his leg that is supposed to simulate blood. I wish his machete was a machete and not the same dagger that they gave literally every character in this 3-pack, because these things aren't sold individually. They're sold as a 3-pack. So you get the horror movie ones, that's 1 pack. You get the Ghostbuster ones, that's 1 pack of 3. So it does what it's supposed to do. You can, again, just like everybody else, you can tell exactly who this guy is supposed to be. But it's kind of funny, though, how they did it, because Jason, when he wore a brown jacket like this, he was dead. He was a zombie, and his skin was gray. Now, obviously, they chose a more human form version of Jason to do this, but it's still kind of funny. And he's also wearing black gloves. So, but again, build-wise, this guy was fun to do. I was kind of curious on how they were going to do the hockey mask, because on the box, you can only tell how so much looking at the box, but then once you actually start putting everything together, it was actually kind of fun to see everything come together and come to fruition. So let's go ahead and move on to Ghostface. What's your favorite scary movie? Ghostface, in my personal opinion, is arguably one of the coolest or best done little brickheads thing. He has jeans and a shirt underneath his robes, and I say air quotes because if you look on the sides, you can barely see it, but if you look in the seam, like right there, you can see multiple colors. In fact, I'm going to try to see if I can get this. There you go. The inner workings. He has jeans and a black and red shirt, and obviously with a blue stripe. That is supposed to mimic Ghostface's actual clothing underneath his robes. And since all it is just a Ghostface costume, it all works. I guess I think he is also supposed to have a brain. I don't remember. I remember a lot of green pieces on the inside, so I don't know if they're trying to say that Ghostface has a green intestines and, you know, organicness and whatever inside his body, but this Ghostface was super easy to do because it's all black pieces. He even comes with a voice changer, which is just a simple recast of a Lego radio or walkie-talkie, whatever you want to call it. The Ghostface mask actually looks really cool in Lego. Just like the hockey mask, I wasn't exactly sure how they were going to pull off the Ghostface, look to the mask. And the plates and stuff that they used for it, I think, was genius on how they did that. So props go to whoever designed these things, because that was a pretty cool way to figuring out how to make that, how to get it and get it done. So, and again, just like everybody else, you can tell exactly who this is just by looking at it. And he actually comes with a parting piece. You could probably see it by now. There's a drop of red blood off to the side, showing that his knife was recently used to gut somebody like a fish. So, now that the brickheads and stuff are out of the way, let's move on to our next segment, Spider-Man Lego. Okay, so maybe I'm just an old man at this point, which, some of you guys might argue that in the comments and stuff below. I know my family sure as hell will argue that. I'm just going to take this stupid web effect out of his hand real quick and put that back. What happened to Lego? Like I said, I haven't been doing anything Lego based in a long time, and I was at my local Target, and I went across the street. I was at Home Depot actually, and then I went across the street at Target, and just to look around, for old time's sake, and I saw these. I'm like, whoa! When the hell did they redo Ghost Rider? Why did they redo Ghost Rider's motorcycle? Like, I have the original version of the Ghost Rider motorcycle. I don't know exactly where it is off the top of my head, or if it's even still in one piece, but I still have that motorcycle somewhere, and I definitely still have the figure for him. And I loved that bike and the figure. This was a cheap little $10 Lego set, so that alone should tell you kind of what to expect here. But there's something about it I just don't like. I don't know if it's the size of the motorcycle, which arguably is supposed to be a lot more realistic to proportions and everything else. There is one key thing I cannot stand on this motorcycle, and we'll get to it once we get there. Actually, there's two, but it's nothing major. So, and also, right off the bat, I hate these new web effects that they use. Why did they stop using the ropes that they used for the longest time, where it was these little plastic pieces, and then in between that, it was a solid string? This is like rubbery plastic, so yeah, you can bend it and whatnot, and it's not going to break or anything. But why is there no string in this? At least include both versions of it, man. Come on. And it's like they're not even real web effects. They have it with these rings, and you have to put this inside the ring so he can hold on to it or make it look like he's thwipping it out of his wrist. I do not like these web effects at all. And unfortunately, we have another one to go through here in a little bit. But I'm getting ahead of myself. They're not bad. They still mimic what the original web effects were. I just prefer those better because they're easier to work with. They're flimsier. They have actual string in the middle of the plastic segments, and they just look more natural. This, yes, is cool for a pose, like if you're having Spider-Man web up a bad guy or whatever, it'll hold that. But or like if you have Spider-Man on the ground, he's webbing up to like a balcony or something, that's great. It's more rigid, so it can do that. But at the same time, it's just like, what happened, man? I am not a fan of these new Lego Spider-Man web effects. We're going to take the Ghost Rider figure off and Spider-Man off the rotating turntable, get the rotating turntable out of the way, and look at just the motorcycle. Okay, looking at just the motorcycle, I am okay with it. I would love to love it. Will I use this in videos? Probably. My biggest complaint about it are these stupid things. I loathe stud guns. I hated them when Star Wars started switching out the blaster rifles for stormtroopers with stud guns, and these don't make much more sense. Because these are loaded with these translucent 1x circles that are flat. And the way you're loading them in there is you have to like wedge your fingernail or whatever inside it to open it. So that way it's open like that. It can actually take one of these damn things. And then you slide it in there like that. Once you hear that click, it's ready to go. And then you can just simply flick it and it'll shoot the little piece out. I don't like these. I have never liked stud guns. I have been a huge advocate that Lego should do away with this shit because I absolutely hate these stud guns. And the ones that they give to stormtroopers, at least the ones that they used to give to stormtroopers, I don't know if they still do. I hate them even more because they are always a pain in the ass. They are always losing pieces. And no, I hate stud guns with a passion. Second thing I don't like about this thing is the front of the motorcycle. The front of the motorcycle, and this is a tease for something else later, is meant to look like a skull, which is fine. You know, it's the Hell Cycle. It's supposed to be a demonic style motorcycle. What is this? Why is this printed on a translucent piece of plastic? I get what they're trying to do with it. They're trying to make it look like they're trying to make it look just like this. Okay, well the battery on this is dying, but you can see the lights flickering inside the thing. That's what it's trying to do. That's what it's trying to simulate with this. What they should have done is continue that printing on the entire piece and not have it be singled out to one tiny little spot. Or better yet, have a piece molded specifically that's this shape that fits over everything. So it kind of hides all of this extra stuff and just makes it look more like a motorcycle. Because, like, yes, you can tell that this is a motorcycle and whatnot, but this piece right here is a dead ringer that especially anybody who knows, roughly what Ghost Rider's motorcycle is supposed to look like. And yes, before anybody says anything, I have done some light paint work to the engine, or the gas tank on Ghost Rider's motorcycle, because this is actually more accurate. I'll do a whole customized figure video on it later. I know that's not a figure, but we'll get into that later. But I don't mind the print. I hate decals. I'm not a fan of decals because they never get I always struggle to put them in the exact placement that they want you to be in. So I'm thrilled that they're not decals. I would prefer printing over decals any day. Ignore the fact that all of my custom Lego figures are all decals. That's different because then they fit over an entire piece. Not I'm trying to get it in an exact spot. With those, I can get them the exact same size, move it into position, and it fixes itself right away. This, I don't mind the printing piece. I just wish that the front of the motorcycle had an actual molded piece that mimicked what Ghost Rider's motorcycle is actually supposed to look like idealistically. Now, yes, they can take creative liberties and stuff because it is the Hell Cycle and it changes from comic book writer to comic book writer. But if you're going to go with something like this, just sculpt it, man. Just do a new mold to make it look like that. Hell, you wouldn't even have to do that. Just go off and get the original, like, goat head or whatever that they used for the Lego Batman Killer Croc tailgater truck. Use that and just mold it to where it fits into a plate like this. Problem solved. Gives you the exact same look that you want. You can even plug flame pieces into it. Problem solved. Call it a day. The actual build for the motorcycle, I think, is kind of cute. It's got these little flame pieces to make it look like the, hellfire is coming out of the exhaust. It's fine. It does its job. My biggest complaint with this is this front plate and these stupid-ass stud guns. I hate stud guns with a passion. So, for those of you who are new to the channel and like Lego stuff, moving forward, I absolutely hate stud guns. Moving on to Ghost Rider, however, he's fine. He's not exactly what I would prefer. They did fix the stupid mistake of having this not dual molded, because last time they had Ghost Rider, they did this with Robbie Reyes' Ghost Rider, and they also did it with the Johnny Blaze original Ghost Rider from the original motorcycle set. They had it to where these two were one piece. Thank God they took inspiration from third-party knockoff brands and separated those two pieces, because now you can get a lot more creative with what you want to do with it. If you want to take that and light Spider-Man's head on fire, knock yourself out. Or if you want to do like a stop-motion thing where he's transforming and then his face or whatever goes crazy first, and then he gets the ignition hair and whatever, great. My only little complaint with this version of Ghost Rider is not the printing on the torso, it's not the printing on the face, although we'll get to that in a minute. It's these. These are supposed to simulate his hands being holding Hellfire. These look like the old school level flame effects where it still has the handle or whatever, but they added a stud to the front of it. Why? Why did they add this? Technically I'm cheating and I'm using it as a piece holder. I'm using it to hold one of the extra little bullets that you get for this motorcycle. So technically it's not horrible. I don't know why they changed the mold ever so slightly, because from the stud backwards is the original piece. Granted, it was just a slightly bit longer than this and it was all rounded. And usually they use them for, I think, Iron Man pieces. I think is what they used to use them for. And then all of a sudden they just added the stud to it, which again, it's fine. It does the job and whatever. The face. I don't like the effect that they did for the mouth or the eyes. Ghost Rider's supposed to be a flaming skeleton on fire. Everybody knows that. Or anyone who knows the character of Ghost Rider knows that. But why does he have stuff coming out of his mouth and out of his eyes like that? I get what they're going for. I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to make it look like his hellfire is so hot that it's coming out of his eye sockets and his mouth. I get that. Versus the original version of Ghost Rider, where his face was not like this, and it was a lot simple. It was a lot more simple. In my opinion, the original one looks so much better. In fact, here's the original. I like this one better, man. Now, ignore the chest and the legs and the arms. This is my custom Ghost Rider. Sorry for the stand jiggling. This is what I meant. This is the original flame effect piece that they had for Ghost Rider, Iron Man, and stuff like that. And this is the new one. Again, I kind of prefer the original ones better. Because you can make it look like he's actively punching somebody with hellfire, versus this is meant to be an effect that attaches to another effect. Because now that they have a stud on there, you can have him like he's shooting a beam of fire out of his hand, which is cool, but include these as well, man. In my opinion, though, I do like these a little bit more just because they look better. And same thing with the head, man. Like, the original face that they chose for Ghost Rider, to me, just makes more sense. It's a standard skull with the yellow eyes and nothing else. No flashiness, no nothing, no extra stuff. This is fine. It just looks a little too extra. It's like it's trying to do something that was arguably dead. But in my opinion, this just looks so much better. In my personal opinion, in terms of faces alone, this face, in my opinion, looks better than this face. This one isn't bad, though. I will give it that. This one is not bad. I understand what they were trying to do. Because in some comic book runs, and some TV shows and stuff that have Ghost Rider being depicted like this, he does look like this. He does have smoke and fire coming out of his eye sockets and his mouth. But I prefer the more clean look. I prefer the less, to me, less on certain things is more. So, I like this face a lot more than this one. They're both still pretty decent overall as a whole. And then the back is actually pretty cool because they do have the chain that looks like it's ignited on fire, and even a spiky belt underneath there. So, the printing on it's fine. It's just, I wish that the face was a little bit different. Same thing with the stuff on the front. All these extra flames and stuff that they added around the chain, I feel like they're unnecessary, man. A little bit does go a long way, and I think they kind of over-designed on something, trying to like correct something that was not bad to begin with, if that makes sense. I am so sorry. That was a lot of negative stuff. I am a Ghost Rider fan. You guys know that about me. I love Ghost Rider as a character. He is actually arguably my favorite Marvel superhero of all time, because he's such a different and unique character. And when something like, something that I get what a company's trying to do, but it just doesn't quite look right, it drives me nuts, and because it is one of my favorite characters. Like, it's the same thing with Spider-Man, and we'll get to him in a minute. But Ghost Rider is one of my favorite superheroes, which is why I even picked up this cheap set. If I didn't like Ghost Rider as much as I do, I probably would not have picked up this Lego set. Even though it was cheap and it was only $10 and whatever, which is fine and great. And I'll probably, like I said, I will still use the motorcycle for future Lego videos. I will most likely still use this version of Ghost Rider for future videos and whatnot. There's a few little minor things that just kind of annoy me. It's just, they're minor annoyances, and we'll get to that stuff later. Spider-Man. Arguably the most iconic superhero of all time, or most popular. One of the most popular superheroes of all time. Lego has done Spider-Man to death. Literally everybody has, which is fine. But where's the dual molded legs? Come on. We'll get into this in a minute, in a later segment of this video. But why in the hell did they not give this version of Spider-Man dual molded legs? The Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 3 Spider-Man that we're fixing to look at here in a little bit does have dual molded arms or dual molded legs, but why in the hell did they not do dual molded legs for something like this? The printing on his back is fine. The printing on his arms is fine. It's stuff that we've seen several times beforehand for a long time. This is nothing new. I wish, though, that they would start making characters that require dual molded legs to just go ahead and do it. It's nothing new. It doesn't cost that much to do it. Just go ahead and reuse stuff that you already have and just slap it in the box, throw it in the box. So that way, hey, you already have a character that is as comic book accurate as you can make it. Throw in the dual molded legs next time, guys. So overall, this whole little Lego set is cool. I'm not gonna lie. For $10, this will make a kid very happy. Oops. There are no real villains to this set. The set itself is depicting Ghost Rider as the villain, which kind of sucks, but you know what? That's fine. Ghost Rider is technically an anti-hero. He's not really a villain. He's not really a good guy. He's just kind of, in between. So, honestly, for what this set is priced at, I say it's not bad. My only little complaint is with Ghost Rider's face and the printing on the printed piece for the front of the motorcycle and the stud guns. Everything else is great. The shape and size of the motorcycle has grown on me. I didn't like it when I first built it, but then looking back at it, this realistically is how they should be scaled. I mean, this bike is still a little too big, but nothing major. And that's just me. A 10-year-old kid who, this is his first supernatural style Lego figure is not going to care. The motorcycle, they're not going to care. The stud stuff, they're not going to care. They just want Spider-Man and another guy. So that's probably what people are going to end up getting this set for anyway, is Spider-Man and Ghost Rider, or at least Ghost Rider. So, let's move on to the next Lego set. Oh, Lord. If you thought I ranted about the last little set, you are not prepared for this one. This one is still a good set. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna beat around the bush or anything. But it also, just like the last one, does not make any sense, especially in the context of Spider-Man 3. So let's go ahead and get everything situated. We'll get the figures off to one side and the actual set off to the other. Okay, so Spider-Man 3. Say what you will about Spider-Man 3, but I highly doubt anybody will tell me that the third act or the final fight of the entire movie is not arguably the best part of that movie. With Spider-Man taking on not only Venom and Sandman at the same time, but at the end of the movie, Harry Osborn, his best friend, shows up, saves his butt, helps him fight the bad guys, and ends up sacrificing himself to save his best friend's life. Happy ending all around. This set isn't bad by any stretch of the word. The figures are actually really a highlight of the video, or a highlight of this segment. The accuracy of this set, however, is atrocious, and we'll get into that here in a little bit. So, let's go ahead and start off with the build. Okay, so this is the build. Why is it treated like a diorama? It literally has a black base around the whole thing and a nameplate. It says Spider-Man 3, Spider-Man vs. Sandman and Venom, printed in white font. Why? I don't know. It's cool, but why? This thing we'll get back to in a minute. These are absurd and don't make any sense whatsoever. It's supposed to look like Sandman was just moving around on this base, and we'll get to back that in a little bit. And then you have a bent street lamp. I'm assuming a fire hydrant, and then a rust pillar that you can move around and whatnot. All of this stuff is adjustable, so if you want, you can move this around. This is actually fixed in place. These are all whoops. It's falling off. So some of this stuff is adjustable if you so choose to have it be. It's like I said, it's a cheap little set. A kid who has never seen Spider-Man 3, who just wants Spider-Man, Sandman, and Venom, and a nice little fun little piece to go along with it, is going to be happy all around. I am actually a fan and defender of Spider-Man 3. I actually legitimately do like that movie, flaws and all, because I understand what Sam Raimi was trying to do with that movie. So, especially when Peter got infected with the black suit. That's another thing. I don't mind the black pieces. For normal comic book Venom, I don't mind these tendril pieces. But this is not comic book Venom. This is Topher Grace's Venom. In Topher Grace's Venom with Spider-Man 3, he did not have tendrils and shit like this all over the place. He had black webbing like this, but he did not have the tendrils and shit like this all over the place like comic book Venom would, or Spider-Man PS5 Venom. We'll get to that again in a little bit once we get Venom himself out here. But this is supposed to be like a diorama style thing. For those of you who don't know what dioramas is, diorama is essentially you put a set or something together, or you build a display piece that's meant to look really nice and pretty. And with some cases like this, you can have a nice little base or something around it, or you can have a nameplate on it. So that way it shows, hey, this is what this scene is supposed to represent. And then some people will put the dioramas in bookcases and stuff. So it's like you look around and like, oh, hey, look, there's a diorama of something. And if you look up diorama, you'll understand what it is. But that's essentially what this is supposed to try to recreate. It's a base with a diorama platform on top of everything. And then you can fit Sandman, Spider-Man, Venom, and everything else off to the side onto the base and have them all interact with the stuff on the diorama. Pretty straightforward, relatively cool idea. I just, again, don't understand the nameplate of that. But if they're going for a diorama style piece, then they succeeded. This is supposed to mimic a scene in a movie, hence why it says Spider-Man versus Venom and Spider-Man, Sandman, and Venom, Spider-Man 3. And then it has the little scene play out behind everything. The scene itself looks accurate for the most part. Obviously, just shrunk down to Lego scale. But Sandman is wildly smaller than his movie counterpart. And don't even get me started on Venom with his tendrils. We'll get into that in here in a little bit. This fucking thing sucks. Because this port right here on the gray section is what is supposed to connect here. But there's not enough room in between these pieces to actually get that done. Because you have this ridge piece right here that gets in the way. There's plenty of space in between here to make it happen for here. But one stud connection. One stud connection right there is what's supposed to hold this piece in place. No. This is what's supposed to help Sandman look like he's forming sand from the ground and then he's working his way up. And he's supposed to fit up there like that. So it's like he's actively coming up with sand right now. The effect on Sandman is fine. The functionality of it is terrible. Because in order for this to work, you have to hold the base at an angle, and then you have to take this piece and try to line it up with the stud receiver right there and click it in. The instructions, however, say it's supposed to be further back like that. And yes, it works. It does clip like that, but then it's off-centered. It's supposed to be in the center of everything, but when you have it clicked in, it's not centered. That defeats the whole purpose of it. It's supposed to sit right there. That's where it's supposed to sit, and even the instructions say, hey, it's supposed to sit like this. But you can't set it like that. You can only have it set on the off-center. Or if you do have it centered, you have to get it in the exact spot right there on the center of that back piece. But then once you do that, then it sits too far forward and it covers part of the brackets, which is fine. And then you can still see the stuff in between. But it's far too loose. That's why I don't know why they only have one piece holding everything together. In my ideal world, I would, if you're going to do something like this, have another piece here, and something up front to make sure that when you push this in, you can lock it in place, but there's enough flat pieces there that you can still pop it off if you want to have him move around freely. So I understand what they're trying to do. I just don't think it was executed properly. Because I think something like this especially should have spent a little bit more time in the oven, just so that way they could fine-tune all of this stuff. Because there's plenty of spots where you can have certain pieces hold everything together, and it will hold it together. But because they're relying on one tiny little port to fit in what's supposed to be in the center right here, there's just simply not enough clutch power to hold it together, and it makes it super flimsy. Like, you can just, once it's on there, it's fine. But then when you barely touch it, it goes flying off. And, it's like once you get it set, if you're just going to use this for display purposes, like I plan on using it for, obviously I'll use the figures and stuff for, Lego stuff and stop motions and stuff moving forward. Dial in everything first. The last thing you do, the last thing I would do is put Sandman on here. Get everything situated first, get it in the cabinet, set it off to the side, make everything look nice and pretty. Last thing you do before you call it a day, put Sandman on there. Then you don't have to worry about it ever again. But as it stands right now, I understand what they were trying to do with it. But if you do not like constantly having to mess with things and constantly having to fix things and everything else, you are going to hate this little piece on top that acts for Sandman's sand effect. Because, seriously, I just barely touched it. I didn't even touch it. It just came off of the plate for a second, and it already popped off. So, yeah, no. And then trying to get everything resituated and resecured, I'm not even going to mess with it right now because it's annoying as hell, and it's going to start really pissing me off. These is articulated. You can move these around and have them standing a little bit straighter, or you can have them more at an angle as well. There's a whole bunch of there are a series of hinges that you can have them, move everything around just like that. Everything's good and dandy. Let's get on to Sandman's hands. I get what they were trying to do with them. But why the shocker pieces? Correct me if I'm wrong. These pieces were originally used for Shocker from Spider-Man No Way Home. Or Spider-Man Homecoming. Yet they remolded them in sandy color brown or tan. They have the hoses and stuff on there on both sides. And the articulated fingers are cool and whatnot. But they also added a shelf piece so you can have it look like Sandman is holding somebody in his hand, which is cool. It's a nice little effect. And I'd rather have more effects than no effects. But to me, these are just fine. I just don't understand those little pieces. Same thing with the other one. It's a lot smaller, but same principle. You can have it look like, you know, somebody's stuck in Sandman's clutches or whatever, or bursting out of his clutches like that. Really cool little effect, and always nice to have more effects rather than not enough of them. But Lego, did we watch the same Spider-Man movie as you guys did? Because when did Sandman look like this? Aside from No Way Home, and aside from when he first becomes Sandman and he's learning how to use his powers to change the color of his sand to look like him, his regular Flint Marko self. And anytime he regenerates in the movie, the entire movie he did not look like this. Anytime he looked like this was in Spider-Man No Way Home because they couldn't get Thomas Hayden Church to actually come up on set to film those scenes, so it was a CGI double, and then he just dubbed in his lines later because he was busy with another project at the time. They did the same thing with Dr. Kurt Connors. That's why when they actually do turn into human at the end of No Way Home, it's reused footage from Spider-Man 3 and Amazing Spider-Man because they couldn't actually get those actors to officially come up on set and do those shots because they had other stuff that they were working on at the time. I wish they had given us a proper Sandman. And what I mean by that is green shirt with stripes, brown pants, regular flesh tone, hands and head, and an attachable hairpiece, and then have this as an alternative look. Because at the end of the movie, when Sandman goes full monster and he's, 20 plus feet tall or whatever, he's 20 plus feet tall. He's at least 100 feet tall when he's beating up Spider-Man at the end of the movie. This does not do that. This is wildly inaccurate for me. Again, it's a cool little effect, and it does do what it's supposed to do. You can tell this is supposed to be Sandman. But at the same time, you could argue that this is just a regular naked dude with some particles and shit all over his butt and body and everything else. Like the print work is fine. It's just it doesn't fit the final battle that was in Spider-Man 3 with Sandman. Again, I will take this over a buildable mech suit thing because I hate Lego mech suits. With the exception of the Hulkbuster and the Ironmonger, that is the only exceptions to those two to that rule. Otherwise, I cannot stand mech suits because again, they don't make sense. But I'll take that over this because at least then that is more accurate to what happened in Spider-Man 3. This doesn't resemble what Sandman actually looked like at the final battle of Spider-Man 3. So, again, for somebody who likes and defends that movie, I just don't understand what they were trying to do with that. So, that's one thing. We're going to take this awful web effect out of Spider-Man's hand. Spider-Man is arguably the best part of this Lego set. I wish he had printing on his arms, and I wish he had printing at least on the front of his boots. But they got the colors and stuff right. They have the nice, shiny, reflective silver webs and stuff on his face and torso, and even on his back. They even have the accurate back spider logo because it is different in Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3. They do tweak up the suit ever so slightly throughout each movie. But the boots. This is what I was alluding to earlier with this Spider-Man that we just looked at with the Ghost Rider set. Why didn't they just do this same style of boot with him? If you had given this Spider-Man dual molded legs like you did with Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man like this, it would have looked so much better. Even though, yes, this is a $25 Lego set and this was a $10 Lego set, it still should have had that. You went ahead and took the liberty of printing on the arms. You should have gone ahead and done the dual molded legs as well. Am I the only one? Am I crazy for wanting that? I don't think so. Because to me, that just makes the most sense. Spider-Man is a character that has red boots, not blue. That's just my personal opinion, though. I know there's going to be a lot of people out there who are just going to be fine with the traditional, little comic book Lego Spider-Man thing. And I am too. I'm happy that if you're happy with that, I'm happy for you. My biggest thing is if a character, they have already done this mold, true and true. They have used dual molded legs on that same color blue plastic before. It is nothing new. It does not cost them any more to make these because you already have those colors and that mold system that you can do to dual mold them. Whoops, he's flying out of my hand. To do that. So just chunk them in the stupid box. Or if you want to, give them both options. Do the blue pants and the dual molded legs so that way people can actually choose, hey, do I want the dual molds or do I want the singles? 9 times out of 10 people will do it the dual molds because it's more detail. I am an advocate for dual molded legs. I always have been when Lego started doing this because it makes more sense. If a character is supposed to have different colored shoes, or in this case boots, like Spider-Man does, then every single version of that character, since you have done this and since you created this, moving forward should have that as a standard because it makes the most sense. Don't keep flip-flopping on, oh, well, certain characters are going to get printed arms, certain characters are going to get dual molded legs. One character for a very expensive set will have both. Just one or the other. Either no printing on the arms and dual molded legs, or dual molded legs and printing on the arms. Both. Both should be standard. For a Spider-Man figure, if you can do it for, Spider-Man, this mold and print work and everything has been going around for years. And I know that they have them with dual molded legs because I have a Spider-Man in my Lego collection that has dual molded legs in these color schemes. So if you're going to go ahead and do it for one, just do it for all of them, man. Make it all universal and uniform, man. That way, nobody's missing out on anything. Nobody's freaking out like, oh my God, I'm not going to get the right one. Or, oh, I want that one because it's got the red boots. If you do it with all of them, everyone's going to be happy. Everybody wins. That's just my thing on it. I have always been an advocate and stickler for dual molded legs because, to me, again, they just make more sense on a character like Spider-Man who has red shoes. So, enough about Spider-Man. Let's begrudgingly move on to Venom. I say begrudgingly moving on to Venom because the print work for Venom is great. We'll get into that in a minute. But the effect pieces, Lego, come on. Again, did we watch the same movie? In Spider-Man 3, Venom did not do this at all in the movie. The only time he was all had his tendons and whatever and tentacles and shit out is when Peter rips Eddie Brock out of Venom and he's a skeletal monster CGI thing that gets blown up at the end of the movie. That is the only time you see these tendrils act like this on Venom. Otherwise, he looked more like this. A dude in a suit. Because that's exactly what he was in 2007. It was Topher Grace in a Spider-Man style suit that was done up to look like Venom. And then he had prosthetics and stuff on his face and a mechanical mask so that way he could emote and everything else, and the suit would capture all of that, or I think the mask itself was CGI. Either way, it was a combination of CGI and practicality. This, as a standalone figure, I like. This, I hate with it. Because in Spider-Man 3, Venom could not, or at least did not, do stuff like this because it was 2007. It was a different time. Sam Raimi, yes, he did his Spider-Man movies that were higher budget movies at the time, but still, they did as much practical effects as they could. This was something they just could not do practical. Granted, yes, they did the Dr. Octopus tentacles and stuff in the previous movie. I understand that. But those were all big puppeteer stuff. This would have looked awful in live action with this particular style of the suit. And that's all it is. This is supposed to be Eddie Brock in a Venom suit. Yes, I mean, he is still an alien suit, symbiote, corruption thing. But in the movie, or making the movie, it was Topher Grace in a Spider-Man suit with some shit on his face for prosthetics. This captures that beautifully, with the exception of this stupid backpack piece. I will never be using this stupid backpack piece if I ever use this version of Venom for anything else other than to display him with the diorama base and everything else set aside, having that scene go down, because that is arguably my favorite scene of the entire movie. Especially when Spider-Man makes that badass entrance, swinging back in his classic red and blue suit, running in front of the American flag to go save the day, only to get his ass kicked because his best friend wouldn't come and help him. But the silver printing for the web lines and stuff are too clean. If you don't believe me, go back and look at reference. If you look at Venom's web lines in Spider-Man 3, none of them are straight. None of them are clean cut. This is extremely clean cut and very well defined on both sides. Very straight, very reminiscent to Spider-Man's web lines, almost exact. Not a big deal, but if you're going off of accuracy, which we already established earlier that this set is not at all accurate to Spider-Man 3, with the exception of Spider-Man and Venom himself, those web lines should be a lot more janky. Maybe that was a little hard to do with this size of body, but still, go back and look at the source material or whatever. Those web lines that are on Venom's chest, head, arms, and legs throughout his entire suit that would mimic webbing on Spider-Man's suit, they were not straight. They were extremely janky and they were all over the place to symbolize the chaoticness of Venom. Venom's face, I do like. I love the big smile that he's got. Looks very similar to how he looked like in the movie. The silver Venom eyes, and then even have some web lines and stuff around his head. Even around his mouth, you can see some slight red printing where his gums would be on Venom's head as well. It looks good. The only thing I don't like about this is this stupid backpack, which is why I am never going to be using it, because that version of Venom never really did that. He didn't go throwing his symbiote like it was a tentacle or whatever. He never did that. It was all streamlined. Hell, he even uses a broken metal piece of metal to try to stab Spider-Man with it towards the end when he's got him webbed up and all but beaten down after Sandman has basically surrendered. So, anyway, food for thought, just my opinion. Overall, this set is fine. It does what it's supposed to. It does what it says on the box. It is Spider-Man versus Venom versus Sandman, adjacently based off of Spider-Man 3 from 2007. This Lego set, however, is wildly inaccurate. Venom's tendrils do not work that way in the movie, at least that we saw of. They never said that. If it was a behind-the-scene concept stuff, it does not count because it did not make it into the movie. Sandman is wildly underscaled for this. In the final battle, he was at least 100 or so feet tall when he was wailing on Spider-Man and Venom was helping him out. So, with the exception, and I don't know why they decided to do it like a diorama style thing with a display base sitting on underneath everything. I don't understand that part, but everything else I can understand. I understand the Sandman effects. I understand the Sandman hands. I understand why they gave Venom these tendrils, because technically for a kid who doesn't know or has never watched Spider-Man 3, they just see a new printed version of Venom. They're going to make him more comic booky. This, I understand. It's not my thing, because that's not what actually happened in Spider-Man 3 with that version of Venom. And then obviously Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man has the dual molded legs, but not the printing on the arms. And I also do kind of wish, whoops, everyone's falling over like dominoes. I do also kind of wish that Venom had printing on his arms to kind of symbolize his version of that version of Venom from Spider-Man 3. But you know what? It's fine. It does what it's supposed to. So let's go ahead and continue on with today's video. It is going to be ending soon, and we'll do the rest of it later. Okay, so that's where we're going to cut off for today's video, because this video is already over an hour long. And like I said earlier, I don't want to be here all day, and I doubt you guys want to be here all day. So we're going to cut this off here. Tomorrow, however, we will pick back up with Iron Man and Andrew Garfield's Amazing Spider-Man from at least No Way Home. So, these guys wouldn't normally take too long, but I want to go into further depth on Spider-Man and a little bit on Iron Man as well, which I would also make this video almost 2 hours long, depending on how much we discuss about it. But we'll save that all for tomorrow. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know it was a little bit longer than normal, but hey, at least we got through all the Lego stuff, both official and non-official stuff. So for those of you who have been wanting Lego-based videos for a long time, I hope this did something for you. We went through 2 official Lego sets and 6 unofficial built brickheads. So also stick around for the channel where we're going to do a custom figure, or a new episode of custom figure, or build a figure, whatever you want to call it, where we're going to be taking this motorcycle and kind of dirtying it up to make it look a little bit more believable and less toyetic, or less toy-like. Ignore the fact that I already started doing that on the gas tank, but that's, again, a project for another time. So let me know what you guys think of this video in the comments down below, and I will catch you guys all next time on Ultimate Deadpool. Peace out. You guys are awesome. I'll catch you guys all later. Bye.